right, folks, welcome to another edition of the DC Sports Huddle. It is presented by MGM National Harbor. And yes, I'm reading it. For the latest in Washington sports, visit MGM National Harbor and experience a sports fans' paradise. It was not a sports fans' paradise on Thursday Night Football in Chicago. The Washington Commanders, though, do get the win. By the way, Rob Woodfork here with Dave Preston, George Wallace. And in New York is Dave Johnson with the Wizards. And we're going to delve right into the burgundy and gold.
He's back from Japan, right? Now he's in New York?
He's not in Japan.
Okay, all right.
I can confirm he is not in Japan. So we are not going to see
Sunrise?
really nice sunrises on the other side of the planet, not in this episode. We did not see good offense in Chicago on Thursday nights.
No,
that was very, very ugly, but it was also very much needed for Washington because, well, we all know why. They had lost 4 straight. There was all kinds of controversy, and oh, by the way, they were mired in yet another controversy stemming from the ownership situation. So I turn to my esteemed colleagues to discuss what does this mean. Now they have the win. Actually, let's not even call it a win.
Yeah.
That was a not loss.
Yeah, it's not.
So they have perfected the art of making you feel bad about it, making a win feel like a loss. Where do they go from here, George, now that they have the victory? They get off the schneid, but now they are still dealing with a lot of the ownership issues.
So they're not going to face another team as bad as the Bears. So they.
That's right.
So let's not everybody get their hopes up that they got a win last night. And there's a lot of coulda, woulda, shouldas in games. I get it. But let's be honest. You don't catch a punt inside the 10 if you're the Bears. That's rule number 1, right?
Oh, man.
So
that was the first thing I reeled about.
They had goal to go a couple of times, didn't get in. Carson Wentz throws for 99 yards. Okay, Curtis Samuel drops the touchdown. He catches that. The numbers look a little bit better. But there is still so much to work on with this team. And you could tell after the game that Ron Rivera was, okay, you're relieved you get a win. There are only 17 of them, and you got to get, however you get it, and you move on. I totally understand that. And a win is a win. But this morning, you wouldn't think it is, especially after the way Ron reacted after the game when he was talking about the reports, the Dan Snyder story for ESPN, and the fact that he didn't want Carson Wentz as a quarterback, and Ron blew up. Now, fans love to hear that passion from Ron, okay? Everybody's been looking for it.
Yeah.
My problem is, it was for the wrong reasons.
Yes.
You drove the bus over your quarterback this week. However you want to look at it, you did it. You backed up, however you misspoke, whatever. Right. So you can't come out and defend the guy like you did last night and blame the media with your comments like that.
And that's been a consistent issue with him, is that he will raise the expectations and then get mad when we hold him accountable for it. He'll get mad that there's this narrative surrounding his quarterback, but then you're the one who started this entire discussion.
So yeah, that's my biggest problem with it, and that's why this isn't going away. You know, you get Aaron. Good luck, congratulations. You get Aaron Rodgers and the Packers next week. Oh, and your highest price free agent now wants out because you're not using him correctly on the defensive side of the ball.
And what's hilarious, that was their biggest free agent signing from a year ago. And that storyline was barely talked about yesterday. I don't think
that's a huge deal.
I don't think I referenced that one time in my sportscast yesterday.
Well, because there was so much other junk.
Well, right,
on.
exactly.
And it's Coach Ron Rivera always says there's a difference between what's important and what's interesting, and there's a lot of what's interesting out there as opposed to what's actually important. What we hear about this team last night, instead of talking about hey they barely escaped disaster in Chicago, it's yeah, the coach blew up, sounding like Casey Kasem coming out of an up-tempo record dedicating something to a dead dog. So there's a lot of junk surrounding this team. Before we move on and focus on the team, Thursday Night Football, guys, it's really bad. And I think it's even worse when you have bad teams because the players are overworked and they're underprepared. It takes until Wednesday before a player is fully recovered from Sunday's collision sport in 2022. It takes at least 3 days to prepare for an opponent properly. You don't have that in Thursday Night Football. And while it might not be as evident when you have quality teams like, say, Kansas City or Buffalo or even Cincinnati playing on Thursday Night Football, it's more obvious when you have hot messes like the Bears who can't get out of their way to save their lives. They run an offense built in 1977, and Walter Payton's not carrying the ball right now. Uniforms that look like Beanless chili.
That's a
They
whole
look like
nother-
the Browns.
Beanless
They look
chili.
like the Browns.
like Clemson.
Ugly uniforms last night. And Washington is a team that, again, has trouble getting out of its own way. The NFL is really just not doing themselves a favor. They're insulting their consumers by forcing this upon their audience on Thursdays. It's akin to selling steak at Morton's, and it's like it's Chuck grade, diseased meat, basically. I akin Thursday Night Football to reheated sushi, which if you've had sushi, you know it shouldn't even be heated in the first place.
Thursday Night Football, they're not going to get rid of it because it's too lucrative. But at a bare minimum, they should ensure that teams do not play the Sunday before the Thursday game. If you are going to, you talk about player safety, you go from a Sunday to a Thursday. They're just getting out of the ice bath on Wednesday. Yeah. So it makes no sense, and that's something they need to do. Dave Johnson, what's the view from New York, my friend?
Well, first of all, I love that Dave's comment about NFL is insulting its consumers. That's what it does, and the consumers take it. Yeah. Whether it's seat licenses, it's like here in New York, Yogi Berra's great line, nobody goes to that restaurant anymore. It's too crowded. Well, there's still going to be Thursday Night Football. Maybe there's going to be Tuesday Night Football because as bad as it is, we're still watching. Yeah. So why would the NFL change anything? They're not. It's not a league that, for all its shield and the wonderful promos that it puts out there, it's not a fan-friendly league. It's a very expensive league to actually be a real fan in. And my highlight of the night was with the 2-minute warning when Al Michaels said, "Don't touch that dial," and I was streaming it. I was watching it on my computer. So it shows you how times have changed. But here in New York, it reminds me you can have success when the owner is a little bit off the rails. George Steinbrenner, but that was a different story. I think about, and this is dating myself, but I cut my teeth covering the Baltimore Colts on Bob Irsay. And he was a little bit out there to the point where he moved the franchise. In between all his craziness, he was needing a new stadium, and that was the bottom line, and it was not happening in Baltimore, as much as that night still pains me to this day. This week and this day reminded me that we all know that Dan Snyder should go, but really it just crystallized that this franchise, and he should give it up, because he should realize that as long as he's there, nothing is going to happen. It is still a dysfunctional organization. If 1/10 of what's in the ESPN report is true, here's a billionaire who's spending lots of money, allegedly, and again, it's been denied by Dan Snyder, on lawyers instead of so many good things you could do, like fixing up your stadium or improving the fan experience. Instead, apparently, private investigators are getting rich. I think about Once Upon a Time. And all great stories start with Once Upon a Time. When Joe Gibbs wanted a player, Jack Kent Cooke bought it, Wilbur Marshall, whatever, and we won Super Bowls and contended. That era is gone, and now I don't know how we ended up in a city where we often have soap operas, but that should be reserved for the politicians. We understand that, but it's now gone into our sports teams, and it's just to the point where Jason Wright, I bought in. I'm wrong. I believe some of what's in that ESPN, that now suddenly he has become just a figurehead. And it reminds me of last week when he's in that ill-timed, ill-taken photo with Jerry Jones and Dan Snyder on the field. I mean this, we could talk about offenses and muff punts and et cetera, but this week has really just smacked home that we're going nowhere until he's gone. And I don't know how that's going to happen, because lawyers are going to get rich.
And also, you know, he brings up the ESPN piece, and that's one of the big takeaways right there for me, was that basically they were saying Jason Wright doesn't have the power that we were told that he does. Right. And, you know,
I think he's and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Just one more thing on the Ron Rivera thing. I'm going to give him a pass on that quarterback issue, and I think it's an example of there's too many press opportunities, talks in the morning, talks before games, after games, et cetera, et cetera. I think it was an honest answer of why this team is not gone forward, because we don't live in the Mark Rippon, Jay Schrader age where you did win without quarterbacks. It seems you need a Tom Brady, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think he ever said or we ever believed Carson Wentz was in the Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers category. And I think it's a sad admission that in today's NFL you need that kind of quarterback, a Lamar Jackson, and we just don't have it in Carson Wentz. It's not that he didn't want Carson Wentz, but what he's saying is, yeah, my job's a little bit harder. This team's job is a little bit harder because we don't have, to use what I live in, the basketball world, the LeBron James type quarterback.
Yeah, and
he didn't mean it. He didn't. I to Dave's point, like the quarterback, yes, he didn't mean it like it came across.
Right.
And I totally get that. But there's a truth to some of that he's talking.
I don't think he wanted him. I don't think that was his. I don't think he drove the bus on that.
No, especially if we believe the fact that the Jimmy G deal was done.
And actually, this ESPN report is not the first time that I've heard that Ron Rivera was not at the forefront of that, and that it was a Snyder move. And it's reeks of Snyder because who else has given up 2 2s and a 3 for a guy that got quit on 2 straight years? And the other thing about that ESPN report was the notion that it sounds like the owners aren't mobilizing against him, but they're at least posturing in a way that will freeze him out. It sounds like his continued ownership of the team is dependent upon.
That's what I take from the article. The fact that now that we know that owners want him out. The quote that says, "Not everybody hates all the owners, everybody hates Dan."
Yeah.
That's a that's a big deal. And if Jerry's in there saying, "I can't protect him anymore,"
But
so let's take a picture.
How bad do you have to be to alienate these 30 other guys? It's just it's unbelievable.
When
When
you've destroyed the franchise, your stadium's falling apart. You can't get a stadium deal because you're that bad.
But it's funny to me that it's the stadium that's going to end up pushing him out.
Yeah.
Because if they freeze him out, Maryland doesn't want to give it to him. Virginia doesn't want to give it to him. DC doesn't want to give it to him. The owners don't want to help him finance it.
Right.
So if that's the thing that keeps him out,
if the owners don't give him the $200 million debt, whatever they're allowed, then that's a deal. And it's to the fact that one of the quotes in there saying, well, if they get the new stadium, will that fix? I promise you, it's not going to fix anything.
No.
Fans are not going to, because there's a new stadium here, fans are not just going to start showing up.
Nobody's going to just go to see a new stadium, except for the Eagles fans who apparently like to come hang out here.
Well, and the situation with this, Well, the situation, I think that you're right. I think the problem, they want him gone now if they could find out a legal way to do it, and that's the issue. And if there was some smoking gun, like he was not sharing revenue, like that story's come up, but that's never, to my knowledge, been proven or properly vetted to the point where the NFL could act on it.
Right.
But the stadium issue, I don't think politically, because he's not going to build it himself. He's not going to go into his money.
No.
So then politically, it doesn't seem like any jurisdiction wants to support Dan Snyder, and that may be what forces the issue on this. Look, we should have, and I'm not just saying this because I'm a soccer guy. The World Cup is the biggest event on this planet, bigger than the Olympics, and FIFA, the world organizing body, wanted the nation's capital to be involved, wanted so badly, but they just couldn't get any guarantees that anything was going to be done to a falling apart stadium. And so that's all you need to know about, to me, Dan Snyder's, myopic view of the world. It's all about him. It's what that could have done for this community. It's not like the Olympics. You would have made a profit on hosting a World Cup game. But we don't have one because the nation's capital doesn't have a stadium built to suit the nation's sport, which is right now American football.
They would have rather gone back to RFK and try and fix that up, and they would have if they'd have gotten the assurance.
It's proof that you're really beholden to ownership in all professional sports, and it's akin to being a European nation in the 16th to the 18th century, 19th century. It's like, hey, Ted Leonsis owns your team. It's like having Louis XIV in charge. Right. You're gonna expand. You're gonna do this. Hey, Dan Snyder's in charge. Oh, it's like one of the Habsburgs, running things, and you're losing territory here and there. And to address the Jason Wright situation, you feel bad for him. But how many times have we seen somebody who has been respected either legitimately or not come into Ashburn, and it's as though when you cross that threshold, all of a sudden you lose all good judgment.
Yeah.
It's like this. It's like this ray that just makes you, and it's unfortunate because here's a guy who could have made a difference with this franchise in this community, and he's if we're to believe what the article reads, he's an empty suit, which is unfortunate.
That is.
Well, I mean, certain things like they've done, like last year, that the Sean Taylor honoring situation, which was not handled properly. It just, they have a chance to do things right. Pardon the pun, with Jason Wright, or have had a chance, and I don't think we've heard enough from him if he truly is, in charge of the franchise. So now we come to really settle into the. Not that anybody doubted that Dan Snyder still wasn't running things, but it just smacks us right in the face as we're stuck in the same old cul-de-sac. And look, I'm not ready to retire. And what scares me is I'm running out of ways to say this and leads to write on WTOP. So my career might be over because we've been doing this story now for 25 years.
It's a Mad Libs.
But it's also,
Mad Libs.
I think you're also seeing it's now getting to Ron. Like Ron is, I think he's done.
Oh, yeah.
He's done. He's just,
I don't
it's
think
all
he
caught up to him.
recognized how
Right.
much
But
of a
to your
mountain,
point-
how much of a crater this was going to have to
To
be.
your
that
point,
he had to climb
people
out of.
come in here, they can fix it. I'm
Yeah.
going to do it. He's going to give me all the power, and that's fine. And Ron got all the power. And we've seen that Ron's not a good GM. Okay, maybe he can coach. Whatever.
Yeah.
But I think you're seeing it now. I mean, he's hit that point. And he's been through a lot in these 2 years.
Absolutely.
With the
Absolutely.
COVID
With
and
COVID,
the cancer,
yeah.
the rebrand, the harassment, everything.
Yeah.
But I think he's just now, he's hit it, and he's just,
And I think from
he
his
deserves 6
standpoint,
yeah.
his job as the coach is to steer the ship, the
Yes.
football team.
Right.
And he doesn't get to really do that.
correct.
And some of that, you bit off a little more than you can chew by taking on personnel as well. But, I mean, in terms of all the scandal and all of that stuff, I mean, no football coach really signs on for that. No. But what he has to understand, and I feel like he sort of borders on insensitivity at times with this, is that it is an important story. Don't talk about what's interesting versus what's important. He does that,
Agreed.
and I understand what he's trying to say,
Yep.
but at the same time, the gravity of what's happened with this franchise, you don't have 25, 30 years invested in this like those of us who grew up in this area have. So you have to understand, just because you're coming in 2 years and it's still relatively new to you, doesn't mean that the rest of us aren't exhausted by it, and it's something that's
by
It's been a rinse and
And he's
repeat.
mentioned it. He has
We're
mentioned
worn
it.
out.
He's mentioned it a number of times.
Yeah.
He has. He understands the history of this. That's when he started cursing a couple weeks ago. Have you noticed how much he's cursing now, by the way?
Yeah.
Which is fine.
I'm down with that.
Right.
You
but
know
it's,
I like that.
But another, to my point, another reason you see that he's, getting to that point.
yeah.
But he's referenced the past and how he used to come to RFK with the Bears. And he knows what this city's like and this and that. But yeah, I mean, it's, you can say all that you want, but people have been around here suffering since '92.
When I moved to this area about 22 years ago, Labor Day weekend, 2000.
To be exact.
Yes,
Gather around.
well,
Story
yeah.
time.
Wait, what time was it?
Oh, it was a long drive.
West Coast time.
Yeah. The view of this franchise was that it was a great franchise that had a couple of spotty seasons here and there. And since then, they've had nothing but spotty seasons. And you look at this franchise since they moved to Washington, and it went from being, there's the story Harry the Dirty Dog. He's the white dog with black spots. He jumps into a hill of coal. Why would you do that if you're a dog? I don't know. He comes out, he's a black dog with white spots. And on those, to get there, Washington is now a franchise that's been spotty throughout most of its history, with just a couple of nice flashes here and there. The Sammy Baugh era, the George Allen, Joe Gibbs era, and the rest has been an absolute mess.
All right, speaking of absolute mess.
Dave, did you get that about the dog?
Yeah, did you?
Harry the Dirty Dog, it's a great story. Great story for the kids.
Maybe for your broadcast.
I didn't have enough sleep, but anyway.
Yeah. We all need sleep after what we saw last night. So what do
It
we
just
think?
upsets you. You wait up, you watch that game late, and you're like, really? At the end of the game, you think you want to be relieved if you're a Washington fan. Yeah, I win it, but you're just annoyed because you watched that.
No, you're annoyed because
And then Dave had to be up at 5 a.m. to do sports.
The only
and he
reason
didn't get
they
any
won that
sleep
game
on it.
is because the Bears are more inept than they are.
Correct.
How do you go 0
So
for 3
bad.
in the red zone?
Correct.
How do you go 0 for 3 in the red zone?
Anyway,
All right,
they are so bad.
so then we're in agreement then that
About what?
this second win is
Oh, yeah,
not.
yeah.
No.
This is just a stay of execution
Correct.
for this team.
Although it is amazing that 2-4 feels more than one game better than 1-5 at this
does.
point of the season.
Agreed.
It's-
It does.
like,
Agreed.
if they were 1-5, we would be talking about moving trucks going up to Ashburn. We'd be talking about coaches on the super hot seat, not just the hot seat. So this is a huge win for them, even though in the grand scheme of things, they're not. They're going to have to push to go 6-8-3.
All right, just real quick then, because I did write in my column on WTOP.com this week
Nice
that
plug.
the one thing that he has done, Ron Rivera, since he's been here, they've had a 4-game win streak each of the first 2 seasons he's been here.
Okay.
This needs to be game 1 of 4 in a row because I don't see where else they're going to get one.
Right.
Do we think they can win 4 in a row?
Green Bay's soft. Green Bay's soft this season. It's,
All right,
I mean,
that's going on their bulletin board, but go on.
This is a week-by-week league, and we've seen this team win 4 games that, heading into the 4 games, you're like, there's no way they can go even maybe 2-2, and they've done it the last 2 years. I think
But
they've
then
done
last year they followed up with what?
Yeah, they kind of
4-game
bottomed
losing
out,
streak.
yeah.
Oh, no.
Exactly.
Went lost 4 in a row, won 4 in a row,
Right.
lost 4 in a row.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to change the trajectory of your season, but
I know. You're just trying to
they
give
do.
They can-
I'm just
they
trying to give
can
people
easily
a reason to
what
watch.
they want, right.
They,
I mean,
this is
They need
such
to watch
a
the game
league.
so that they'll watch us.
This is such a league, guys, with injuries and everything. 3 wins in a row is not out of the realm of possibility,
Yeah.
even for the worst teams in the
right.
league.
Yeah.
Four's not out of the realm.
Yeah, the season would have been over had they lost last night, and the players understood that. And while it didn't feel like a resounding victory, but far from it, the bottom line is, and it's very much a bottom line business, at least they're still alive because of that victory. What they do with it going forward, this is the NFL. This is why it gets TV ratings. We don't know. There's not a script, and there can be surprises. There were some encouraging things. I thought last night. I mean, the offensive line for the 6 combination, 6 games or whatever it is, I thought was actually starting to look a little bit better.
Fourth
Even
center.
though again,
That's on the
but
GM.
you
4
have to-
centers in 6 games.
but- but you have to score points, and that's obviously an issue. But the defense last night, Justin Fields couldn't do anything. Not that he could do anything regularly, but I haven't watched a lot of Justin Fields, but I was tremendously underwhelmed last night. So again, they have a chance now going forward because they won last night. A chance to what? I don't know, but a chance to at least
Something.
Also, the Bears pointed out they had a 300-yard punter last night. A 300-yard punter, but their quarterback threw for, net yardage, 86 passing yards last night.
True story.
It's not going to win a lot of games.
True story. When they said the Commanders were going to get a field goal, for a moment I had a brain lock. I couldn't think who our kicker was because that was only our 3rd field goal.
He
all
only
season.
attempted one all year until last night.
So I'm thinking like, wow, is Nick Lohmiller still with us? But anyway, it's just that
Nick
says
might
a
be
lot
his
that
real
you've
name,
only
I don't know.
attempted 3. Forget touchdowns. You only attempted 3 field goals this year.
Well, what's really kind of heartbreaking is that the first 2 weeks they score 4 touchdowns in each game. So I'm singing the Commanders song
Please don't
8
do it.
times
Please
the
stop.
first 2 weeks.
Please stop.
I've only been able to sing Commanders 5 times in the last 4 weeks. That's
Which
kind of
is
disappointing.
exactly 5
many.
times too
Hey,
many.
it's gonna catch.
It's
It's going to happen
That's-
just like
that's-
Fetch.
Turn
it's
off
gonna
his,
catch.
Turn off his mic.
It's going to catch.
That's reason enough to root for the collapse of the franchise. But I think we're dealing with a situation. Ron Rivera, I believe, to be a very good person, and it's just another, as you guys indicated, sad situation where you come to a franchise being a good person and knowing you're a good person, you do believe you can impact change.
Yeah.
And the tsunami of dysfunction just sweeps you away.
Man, the tsunami of dysfunction. I
Nice.
like that.
I like that.
Man, that was poetic, man. Look at you. Look at you. All right, so let's pivot to college. We got a great, certainly these programs are better than the pro program that we're talking about. What should we look for in college football this weekend?
Well, I think a big weekend ahead for Maryland. They're tough loss last Saturday against Purdue at home. Tomorrow they're at Indiana, and this is one of those fulcrum games that can really change the trajectory of your season. Because did we think that they'd go 11-1? No, but Coach Mike Locksley has them to a point in building the program that they should be able to beat the Purdues and the Indianas of the Big Ten. Huge game tomorrow on the road. And then can anybody beat James Madison in the Sun Belt Conference? Can anybody watch James Madison? They're on ESPN Plus this weekend. So some really good games this weekend. And on my Presto's picks this week on WTOP.com, we talk about the Hot Seat Central against Hotty Toddy in the SEC.
I will say real quick about the Maryland thing.
Yeah.
You're getting to a point where I was mad at the Purdue law. I mean, you get upset now when they lose. Before, it's too. Like, okay, whatever.
Right.
But questionable calls, which I will, I'm fine. But I was upset they lost the game.
Well, they have, and they have have Indiana tomorrow.
Yeah.
They have Northwestern the following week,
yeah.
and then at Wisconsin, who's gone through a coaching change. So there's 3 wins before they come up against Penn State and Ohio State next month. So the season is still ahead of them. Last year they qualified for a bowl for the first time in eons, which was nice, but Coach Locksley has their sights set a little higher, as they should. Yeah. And Talia Tagovailoa is a great player to watch. And if he's able to get time to throw the ball, which he has been this season, they're a heck of a lot of fun to check out.
All right,
there you go.
So are the Washington Wizards. Let's, Dave.
Final preseason game, right?
Last preseason game, or what should we look for from the Wizards? As of this taping, they haven't played that preseason game against the Knicks as of yet.
No, look, this team gets it, and they were talking about it the other night at a fan event. And it is significant. We should point out Bradley Beal staying with the team, and he knows it's going to be hard work. But this is a team. Kristaps Porzingis said it better. He said it best, perhaps. He believes they have more talent, more to work with, and because of that, he believes it's going to be an exciting season. And I've seen that in glimpses when you bring in a Will Barton, you bring in a Monte Morris, you add that to a collection of young guys that are starting to figure out this NBA game. Rui Hachimura was talking about what he now feels comfortable with. It's a big transition to the NBA game. This team, I've said it ad nauseum, just improves 3 possessions a game better on defense. It's suddenly in the mix in the Eastern Conference because it can score. And as Wes Unseld said, this is not going to be a team that's suddenly going to be smothering on defense and going to be gambling every play. But I've seen this in preseason. If you're active, if you're creating deflections, if you're disruptive, it's just small things. That's all they have to do because this is a basketball town. It just needs to be kissed right, and that's up for the Wizards to provide that romance.
All right.
I like that.
He's
full
of poetry.
He's got sheets. I know he has sheets underneath.
He's talking about make it out. He's talking about fulcrum. Like, this is great, man. This is great. This was a great episode of the DC Sports. First of all, we got to, this set. Am I right?
I like the set.
You guys enjoying the set?
Yeah.
This is fun.
We got lots of fan emails about this.
Yes, exactly.
Big.
Yeah. So another edition of the DC Sports Huddle in the books, and I'm going to do the read because we're in a new studio.
Yeah.
We don't have teleprompters. It's sponsored by MGM National Harbor. For the latest in Washington sports, visit MGM National Harbor and experience a sports fan's paradise. I am Rob Woodfork. Yeah, we're going to work on the prompters.
It's in the budget.
Yeah.
Is it though?
2024.
Rob Woodfork here alongside Dave Preston, George Wallace, and Dave Johnson in New York. We will break the huddle until the next time.